This is Pressers by FedNet, where news conferences from the United States Congress become podcast episodes for your listening on your time. Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was joined on December 17th outside the Senate chamber by Appropriations Committee Chair Patty Murray and Armed Services Committee Chairman Jack Reed to discuss negotiations on a funding resolution and policy features in the defense authorization then pending. The following material is protected by copyright.
Hi, everybody. So thanks for joining me. I have Senators Reed and Murray for being here today. Well, it's been a busy week in the Senate. Last night, the Senate voted 83-12 to advance the NDAA by a strong margin. It says here, last night, the Senate voted 83-12 to advance the NDAA by a strong margin of 83-12. Reading my notes. He got it, no one else. The NDAA is now on a glide path to final passage. Of course, the NDA is not perfect. It doesn't have everything either side would like. It includes some provisions that we Democrats would not have added and other provisions that we would want left out entirely. But, of course, you need bipartisanship to get this through the finish line. The NDAA took a strong stance against the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party, something I fought for very hard to get in that bill, and now it's in. The NDAA will boost the use of AI for our competitiveness and national defense, something you know I'm very passionate about. It would also expand the Tech Hub program from the Bipartisan Chips and Science Act. These funds will transform communities in New York and across the country into the next epicenters of innovation. Lots of smaller cities and rural areas that were left out will now be part of this modernization of our tech industry. The bipartisan measures to expand on AI, to expand our AI infrastructure, and strengthen the U.S. edge against the CCP are so important to our national security and our technological edge. And Chairman Reed has done a great job. I salute him. You'll hear from him in pushing this bill through. On the CR, there continues to be good progress. Work is ongoing to finalize an agreement in text. Text is not yet posted. Of course, time is of the essence to pass this bill before the December 20th deadline to prevent a harmful government shutdown and deliver critical disaster relief, which we're fighting very hard for American families. Senator Murray and I are going to continue to work together to make this happen. So let me turn it over to Senator Murray.
Well, thank you. We have been working around the clock to wrap up the CR and the disaster relief bill. We should be done, but unfortunately we've been delayed by an 11th hour demand from the Speaker. We are very close to an agreement, so I look forward to resolving the final issues and getting back on track. We are heading into the holidays, and the nation really needs a bipartisan package that will prevent a needless shutdown, keep our government open, and get much needed support to areas across the country that are recovering from disaster. Communities hit by hurricanes and tornadoes and fires and a lot more have been waiting for a long time for this. It's been nearly a month since I held a bipartisan hearing on just how urgently people all across our country need disaster relief. They are counting on us to deliver the resources they need to get back on their feet, to rebuild essential infrastructure, and recover in the wake of disaster. They are watching and wondering whether Congress is going to help them. And we have to answer with a resounding yes by getting this package across the finish line, which is what I am focused on doing. We have to make some hard choices in Congress sometimes. This should not be one of them. Another easy choice ahead of us, funding the government and preventing a senseless and devastating shutdown. I do want to note that here in the Senate, where Democrats hold the majority, we put forward our serious funding bills. We passed them out of committee on an overwhelming bipartisan basis, not a theoretical exercise, but to write bills that could pass both chambers and actually help people. Because it does matter if NIH is forced to operate on last year's spending priorities, setting back groundbreaking research. It does matter if the Social Security Administration has the resources they need to clear backlogs so seniors can get their benefits. or if WIC is fully funded, so moms and babies don't go hungry. Across all of our funding bills, there are real consequences for real people, for our economy, and for our national security. So yes, it is disappointing to be here again at the 11th hour, waiting to simply kick the can down the road with another CR rather than passing our bills into law that meet the needs of our country. But I will remind everyone, as we work together now to negotiate a full-year spending bill for fiscal year 2025, the appropriations process will remain bipartisan. House Republicans will have fewer seats than they do this year, and Senate Republicans will not have 60 members. Democrats will continue fighting for the investments that matter to families and working people everywhere in this country on everything from child care to affordable health care to clean drinking water and so much more. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, let's fund the government, pass these bills that will help our fellow Americans and get them across the line. Thank you.
Senator Reid.
Well, thank you, Leader Schumer and Chair Murray. The 2025 National Defense Authorization Act strengthens America's economic, industrial, and military might. It invests in our service members, increasing the pay of junior enlisted service members by an historic level. And it contains significant raises for our other uniformed personnel and DoD civilian employees, too. It includes major quality of life improvements, enhancing things like child care, housing, medical services, employment support for military spouses, and much more. And it authorizes critical investments in technology and advanced weapon systems, strengthens our cyber capabilities, and bolsters innovative R&D research. I appreciate the 83 senators who came together last night to advance the bill and help make America safer and stronger. They voted to raise wages at plants and shipyards around the country and to ensure we can recruit and retain the skilled workforce we need for our industrial base. The bill has strong bipartisan support. But I do share my colleagues' frustration that the bill includes a provision that would prohibit gender-affirming health care for minors in certain circumstances. I voted against this provision in committee and disagree strongly with including such an extreme, misguided provision in the defense bill. However, during the negotiation process, we were successful in stripping out the vast majority of very far-right provisions that were passed in the House bill. Our military is and must retain be a merit-based organization, not a partisan one. We must work together to ensure our military remains the strongest, most effective, professional, and lethal fighting force on the planet. We have a duty to support our servicemen and women. We rely on their skill, their judgment, their integrity, and their courage. They deserve worthy leadership, worthy of their sacrifices. And we believe this bill, by and large, accomplishes that mission. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. We'll take questions, but first, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy everything to everybody. Yes.
Third Circuit nominee Bill Monty told President Biden in a letter yesterday that the judicial selection process is, quote, fundamentally broken, and he said, quote, this is no longer a system for evaluating fitness for judicial office. I'm wondering what your reaction is to that.
My reaction is that we didn't have the votes to put him on the floor, and I was supportive of him. That's regrettable. Yes.
One of your big accomplishments in 2022 was the CHIPS Act, but since the beginning of this year, Intel stock is down 60%. Pat Gelsinger has stepped down because the board did not agree with his vision for competing with TSMC long term. Looking back at it, do you think Congress overestimated the viability of manufacturing semiconductors?
No. Most of the chip manufacturers are doing very well. Micron, Global Foundries in my state, Wolfspeed, all across the country. I don't know what the specifics are in Intel, but the Chips and Science Act is one of the best things this Congress has done in decades, and it'll keep America number one. Yes.
Is there any chance or any discussion of a shorter CR if you guys can't come to an agreement by the end of this week?
Look, the text hasn't been posted yet. We agreed to a March 14th deadline, and I believe that will hold.
Leader Schumer.
Yes.
Do you agree with President Biden's veto threat for the Judges Act?
Of-
Would you like to see this enacted that would add 66 new temporary?
I think I will await the decision by the president. Thank you, everybody.
Incoming Majority Leader John Thune was then joined by Republican conference leaders to discuss pending business, including the defense authorization and America's global leadership. Thune fielded questions about handling cabinet nominees, procedures for moving a funding bill, movement on the Social Security Fairness Act, and more.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We have a bit of a pileup here in the United States Senate. We have the Defense Authorization Bill, which we're still trying to get going. We've got a continuing resolution, a disaster supplemental, Water Resources Development Act, and a Social Security bill, all supposedly going to be processed by the end of the week. And I just want to make one observation about especially National Defense Authorization Act, which, as I've told you before, has been available literally since June when it came out of the Senate Armed Services Committee, and Senator Schumer and the Democrats have stalled, not put it on the floor, not prioritized our national security at a time when we have ships that can't get out to sea, planes that can't fly, and a military readiness problem that seriously needs to be addressed. That is not going to happen next year. I can assure you that national security will be a big priority. President Trump campaigned on national security and making sure that our military is ready to confront the threat matrix that we face around the world today, and he will have the full support of us in the Congress to make sure that those important national security priorities are addressed in the upcoming year. So it's regrettable that this is where we are and that we have this pile up, but it was of the Democrats' own making, and now we're going to have to do our best to try and sort through it and find our way out of it and get into next year, where we're going to be in the majority and we will set the priorities, and they will be very different priorities.
Well, Republicans will restore and reassert America's strength in the world. That means a military that is lethal, that is prepared to fight, that is intimidating. It means border security, and it also means America energy dominance, because border security is national security, and energy dominance and America's strength are tied together. I've just returned from the 80th anniversary commemoration of the Battle of the Bulge. That was the bloodiest war in World War II. Hitler's vicious attack by 200,000 Germans and 1,000 Panzer tanks was a surprise to our allies and to the U.S. troops. My father was one of the 500,000 brave Americans who fought that battle in the bitter cold in the cruel winter of 1944. I've just returned from walking the cemetery in Luxembourg, where over 5,000 American soldiers are buried, along with General Patton. This is a constant reminder that our enemies are unpredictable and unforgiving. And for America to be safe, we must be strong. For the last 4 years, this administration has squandered American strength, and it has surrendered our strategic advantages, and that's why our enemies are on the march. Republicans are on a mission to restore America's strength and standing around the world. It is the only way for our nation to be safe and free.
Well, as much as it pains me to say this, congratulations to the United States Naval Academy on their very, very strong win against the United States Military Academy on Saturday. We witnessed America's game, which I will use the old adage that all of those incredible young men that were on the field They are the ones that are willing to die for every last one of us that watched the game on Saturday. So again, congratulations to Navy. They did beat Army. And I will be paying Rick Scott later for our bet. But again, you know, we want to make sure that we have the most lethal fighting force on the face of the planet. And we have not seen that effort in the last 4 years under the Biden administration. Our adversaries look at us and they see weakness. Our friends are wondering, where is American leadership? What we have seen in the last 4 years, we have seen the world on fire. We have seen chaos at our southern border. We have seen the killing of American service members. Think back to Tower 22 in Jordan, where 3 Army reservists were killed under this administration. And we have had Chinese spy balloons traversing the United States of America, paving the way for unidentified drones, with no reaction from our federal government. We have a lack of American leadership. But thankfully, this week, we will be passing the National Defense Authorization Act. And through that act, again, we will feed the lethality of America's fighting forces. I have focused on traumatic brain injury with our service members and providing safety measures for them. We are strengthening our southern border, and we continue to build upon President Trump's Abraham Accords. So, as we move forward, a good clue and key for our adversaries is President Trump is coming back into office, and there is no doubt that we will once again lead the world with American leadership.
Hello to everybody, and John Thune said something that feeds into what I wanted to talk about. He said there's a lot of unfinished business, but apparently the Biden administration is trying to finish their spending business before the clock ticks off on January the 20th. One EPA official said on their funding strategy that this is like throwing gold bars off the Titanic, or it's an insurance policy against Trump. Just last Thursday, the EPA awarded $1.6 billion last Thursday to 84 new recipients in their Environmental Justice Block Grant and Community Change Program. Now, if you recall, I brought to this podium the fact that the EPA was going to grant last summer hundreds of millions of dollars to groups that are what I consider anti-American, anti-law enforcement, pro-Palestinian. On their websites, they're totally very far-left groups. We don't even have an inspector general because the Democrats would not let us did not write into their bill and expect an inspector general to follow the $41 billion that's in the supposed Inflation Reduction Act. And now you see they're just flooding money out the door. Talk about a waste. And they don't want to leave it there because they don't want us to, A, reprogram, or what we would probably do, claw this money back for programs that are more beneficial, that have more meaning, that actually help a lot of different people across the country. So I've just recently requested that the EPA give us some transparency, give us a matrix as to how much was spent, who got it, what were the matrix that were used to determine those that are going to supposedly create these climate justice programs here in the 11th hour before the president leaves office.
Would you be okay with an HHS?
This is a McConnell tradition right here.
Would you be okay with an HHS secretary who has linked vaccine use to childhood autism?
Well, I think all of us are committed to making sure that all these nominees get a fair process. And he'll have an opportunity through the course of his meetings to answer those questions and in front of the committee of jurisdiction. And so those things are all going to be part of the confirmation process, and I would expect the nominee to have answers to those questions.
Leader Thune.
Yeah.
Leader Thune.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What sort of problems would you anticipate on your side in the next 48, 72 hours in terms of slowing up this CR or any to review the bill? Johnson has not even posted the bill yet.
Right.
I mean, do you expect some people to say, hey, we need to take some time to look at it, we need to take some time on the floor? Does that get us to Saturday?
Once it's posted, they've got their rules over there that they have to comply with, and so I'll leave that to them. But obviously, we want to see the posted text, and I think our members it's going to be hard to gauge the reaction of where senators are going to come down until we actually have seen the text. But, obviously, as I pointed out, this is a big pileup at the end of the year, largely, again, attributable to the lack of Democrat action on anything for the last 6 months. Not a single spending bill, National Defense Authorization Act, and so we're dealing with this mess because the Democrats here in the Senate failed to take up what I think are the most basic responsibilities of our government. That's to fund the military and obviously to spend wisely the taxpayer dollars. So that's why we are where we are. What that looks like remains to be seen until we actually see bill text.
After listening to the discussion at lunch today, do you have a recommendation for your conference about what to do about the Social Security Fairness Act? And what about this proposal by Rand Paul to gradually raise the retirement age to offset the cost of this $200 billion package?
Well, those ideas with respect to that legislation, there was a lot of conversation around today, as you might expect. And I think in the end it's going to come down, individual members are going to make their own decisions about where they want to come down on that. It's a bill that's been put in front of us by the House of Representatives. Obviously I'm concerned about the long-term solvency of Social Security, and that's an issue that I think we need to address. How this more immediate issue gets dealt with, we'll have an answer to, I think, hopefully by the end of the day. Depending on when we get to vote on the NDAA final passage, that'll be the next vote up, and we'll see where our members come down. But we had a very fulsome conversation about that, and that's about all I can tell you about it.
Senator,
one last, yeah.
Do you think the Trump transition team has done a good enough job meeting with Democrats as part of this process?
I think they've tried. I think there's been an attempt. I know some of the nominees that I've met with, I've asked if there's been outreach to Democrats, and there has been. In some cases, that hasn't been responded to by the Democrats. So I think our nominees, to the best of my knowledge, are doing their best to try and, as they reach out to Republicans, particularly on the relevant committees, also try and make contact with Democrats. But I had a conversation with one earlier this morning who hasn't had any success doing that just yet. So hopefully the Democrats will entertain our nominees and give them an opportunity to make their case and hear them out, and hopefully if they are qualified for the jobs, to support them in the end. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this FedNet podcast, and be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. This program is copyrighted by Federal Network, Incorporated, and provided only for informational and educational purposes. Unauthorized reproduction, distribution, or use of this episode without expressed written permission from FedNet is prohibited. Visit us online at www.fednet.net and watch FedNet on Amazon Fire TV, Haystack News, and Local Now for coverage of the United States Congress like no one else.